What about you? You're very welcome. Now, let's start off by having a wee chat about the Cathedral Quarter in Belfast. Now, the Cathedral Quarter in Belfast sits like an oasis among the devastation and decrepitude that has become North Belfast, that part of the North Belfast area, due to the Tribeca. More about that later. But in this wasteland of empty shops and derelict streets is this Cathedral Quarter with a vibrant nightlife full of pubs and nightclubs and restaurants and bars. And it's attracted people from right across the UK who come to the city, and that's where they go, and they have a great time, and they go back home and say, what a wonderful place Belfast is. Luckily, they don't go any too far outside the Cathedral Quarter. Now, there's been plans to pedestrianise the Cathedral Quarter for a long time. The reason for that is it's a very ancient part of Belfast. It's actually cobbled streets, a few cobbled streets, but these were built for horses and carts. They were never meant for vehicles. Our big cars today, or even our motorbikes or whatever, they were built for horses and carts. And at the weekend, it is thronged with people. Do you know what I mean? It is chock-a-block. They're walking on the road. There's no pavements far too narrow, so it's chock-a-block with people. It is obvious. As a health and safety, apart from anything else, this area should be pedestrianised. Indeed, it was for a short period. Around High Street and around there was pedestrianised during the COVID pandemic, and it was a great success. So, everybody says it should be done. Indeed, local businessman Bill Woolsey, who owns a big hotel down there, he owns hotels and pubs and clubs right across Northern Ireland, pumps a lot of money back into the local economy. Well, Bill come out and said, it's just too dangerous. Hill Street needs to be pedestrianised. And there was hope this was going to happen when our new infrastructure minister, John O'Dowd, Sinn Féin's John O'Dowd, came in and said he was minded to follow through and bring the pedestrianisation in. Hurrah! No. Because this week, John has turned around and said he's not going to do it. He's not doing it. And he has claimed that it's due to, he blames underfunding and austerity by the British government. I mean to say, boys and girls, what would politicians here do if they didn't have the Brits to blame? This is insane. You know, Damien Corr, the manager of the Cathedral bid, described the decision by O'Dowd as a missed opportunity. And he added that he couldn't understand how it wasn't followed through on, as it was nearly a done deal, and he couldn't see how much was left to do. Now, in fairness, in the same week, John O'Dowd has brought and put before the Assembly proposals for the upgrading of the A5, the Death Road, with much needed, right? And that's 100 pages or whatever it is, a big bit of work. Now, this, in comparison, would be about a page. That's all this takes. All this would take to achieve is a couple of bollards and changed road signs. Minister O'Dowd, as far as the money's concerned, you could probably find the money to bring this to reality down the back of your sofa. Have a wee hunt down the back of your sofa and you'll find all you need to get this over the line, because it desperately needs done. And as what we'd call it in North Belfast, this is a no-brainer. And if John O'Dowd doesn't follow through on it, I'm afraid that's what people will be calling him. I mentioned last week that the leader of Hezbollah had given up all electronic devices for security reasons and was now relying on couriers with secret messages to communicate. Well, didn't do him any good, as Saeed Hassan Nasrallah died this week in Beirut, along with 20 other leading high-level Hezbollah operatives after a Israeli bombardment of the city. Now, while I have no sympathy for either Hezbollah or Hamas, which slaughtered 1,139 innocent Israeli civilians on October 7th and took others into hostage, I am beginning to wonder why they're designated terrorists when the IDF has killed 40,000 innocent Gazan men, women and children since that date, bombing places thought of before as out-of-bounds sanctuaries such as schools, hospitals and places of worship, all the while arguing that their actions were justified because Hamas was using civilians as a human shield. When you have a land space that small and a population that big, that's no longer a justification. What makes the Nasrallah attack all the more surreal is that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly gave the go-ahead for it from an office in the UN headquarters in New York. So much for the UN definition of peace, which states that peace is a condition in which individuals, families, groups, communities experience low levels of violence and engage in mutually harmonious relationships. Netanyahu was there in a vain attempt to justify his actions. Not that many world delegates heard what he had to say, as the vast majority of the assembly walked out when Netanyahu took to the stage. What we're left with is a Middle East now teetering on all-out war, with Iran threatening severe repercussions. And considering Netanyahu appears completely oblivious to any outside constraints whilst holding a not insubstantial nuclear arsenal, the world itself is now in mortal danger. Israel, of course, has never admitted to having nuclear weapons, whilst regularly assassinating nuclear scientists in Iran. Nor has it signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, because it doesn't have nuclear weapons, even though everybody knows that they have nuclear weapons. Now, considering the US and its allies invaded Iraq on the pretense that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, something which was subsequently proved to be a complete lie, I'm sure it's only a matter of time until the US and UK invade Israel due to them having an illegal cache of nuclear weapons which they must be disarmed of. Not likely. Not likely at all. We was saying in these parts, your woman's got a brass neck. This relates to people who exhibit no shame around errors they may have made, or just got a brass neck. And with a perfect example of just such a person this week in the shape of dumped DUP leader Arlene Foster, who is touting herself around as an expert in the field of, would you believe it, green energy. For the small fee of £10,000 a day, you can get Arlene along to lecture you. Now, this is the same woman who oversaw the most disastrous green energy scheme in the world in the shape of the renewable energy, or what we now call cash for ash, which cost us and the public purse hundreds of millions of pounds. You know, this is a bit like the captain of the Titanic promoting himself as an expert in safe shipping, or Sammy Wilson doing seminars in healthy eating, or even Gerry Adams giving speeches in pacifism. Sir Patrick Coughlin, the chair of the subsequent RHI inquiry, he indicted Arlene for not having read her own department's legislation. Yet this is the same woman who now feels she's qualified to lecture others on green energy policy. The degree of arrogance this exhibits is mind-bending, even in the world of politics. What it shows is a complete lack of contrition for the hundreds of millions her lack of oversight caused. Money which could have been spent in our NHS or education sector. For example, BBC NI, this Spotlight programme this week, brilliant programme. They did a heartbreaking examination on the complete lack of support for local families coping with children with severe special needs. So, if by some fluke Foster manages to find someone stupid enough and who's never read the truth about her past, who pays her £10,000, I'd suggest she immediately donate that money to this charity. Some chance. Arlene's belief that she's qualified to lecture others on a subject she so spectacularly failed exhibits a core characteristic of many politicians, namely a greedy, self-centered arrogance, incapable of recognising, much less apologising, for even the most egregious errors of judgment. See, a normal person, having overseen the RHI debacle and be subsequently unceremoniously dumped by their own party, would have quietly retired from public life to possibly reflect on the character defects which led them to such abysmal failures. Not Arlene. Oh, not Arlene Foster. Instead, she immediately jumped across to the Big Island to front shows on the far-right GB News, whose viewers, no doubt, are willing to forgive any incompetence so long as you're the sort of person who thinks covering the 12th of July parades on national TV is of paramount importance. Not so here on the small island. We don't forget nor forgive Foster's disastrous political career, and it's our responsibility to point this out, which I hope I have just done. But by the way, if there are people stupid enough to pay Foster $10,000 a day advising firms on green issues, I'm available to spend a day lecturing them on the intricacies of nuclear fusion in the 21st century for the cut-down price of only $5,000 a day. Well, the difference is I acknowledge I have no credentials to do so, but I think Arlene's story proves that competence is irrelevant these days. All that's needed is a total brass neck. So what I did last week, I gave a wee review. And last week's review was of a play that's running in the Lyric Theatre called The Man Who Swallowed a Dictionary. And my wee mate Paul is in the main role. It's an amazing show, well worth going to see. But this week I thought what I'd talk about is a webpage, a website. And the website's called Northern Ireland Historical Photographic Society. And the site address is up there. I'm going to put it up there somewhere. They'll put it up there somewhere. I don't know. Somewhere it'll be up there anyway. And this is, as it says, it's historic pictures of not only Belfast, but the whole of the north, dating back to the year dot. And there's some gems. There's some amazing images. You know what I mean? Like, who knew that the Terminator visited Belfast? Arnie Schwarzenegger, right? The Terminator. Big Arnie was here in 1966 outside the Belfast Telegraph old building, carrying two women. I don't know why he's carrying two women, but he's carrying two women. This is before Arnie even won his first Mr. Universe title. So that's way back in 1966. This image, this picture is of Donegal Place looking down towards City Hall. Now, what's a bit daunting about some of these images is you're looking at them and they look ancient. And then you realise, I could be in that. And this one, I could be in this one because I remember wearing that Wrangler jacket. I remember that, and the flared trousers and all. I remember all this. I'm probably down at the bottom near the City Hall getting searched on the way in. I could be in this one. And believe it or not, this next image, well, it's of a row of houses that used to be on North Queen Street in North Belfast, beside the old charitable building. And I remember them too. Believe it or not, there's a bit of video somewhere in the family of me on the morning of my first Holy Communion walking along outside those houses down to St. Patrick's Chapel. And that's so I'm actually definitely know that I could be in this one. But the catalogue of images goes way back. Right? This one also I have a personal connection to because I've walked past this 1,000 times. This is one of the caves up on Cave Hill. And the man beside it is a warden. The warden seemingly then. And by the look of the paths were in better quality then than they are now. Is any North Belfast councillors watching this or listening to this? Anybody awake? Hello? Anybody awake? Because I'll tell you this, West Belfast, Black Mountain, they've built a wooden pathway. They don't even have to get their feet dirty to walk up the Black Mountain. Up in the Cave Hill, you're in danger of falling off the bloody thing. I'm not saying there's difference between North Belfast councillors and West Belfast councillors, apart from the fact that the West Belfast councillors seem to get what they want. Anyway, leave it. Don't get me in that. Don't be in that. But then just go back even further in that. And I'd like to show you. This is supposedly the oldest image and the first picture ever taken in Belfast, right? And it looks down Chapel Lane. You're looking down Chapel Lane. And on the bottom left, you can see a large sort of structure. It's long gone, a big tower. That's St. Mary's Church. And that tower's now, but St. Mary's Church is still exactly where that is. But what I love even more is, do you see on the right? That's a Hercules. That's a Hercules bar. It's still there. Hercules is still there. And it's still called the Hercules. Would you play? And I guarantee you, I'll make a bet that the characters inside the Hercules today are exactly the same as the characters when that picture was taken in 1890. Hasn't changed. Clothes have changed. That's all's changed. They're still in there. In 1890, I guarantee they were arguing about who won the toss, right? Who owes who money? Who's been away with the other guy's wife? And more importantly, who's banned the next round? It's your turn. It's not your turn. It's my turn. It's your turn. Because the clothes may change, but I don't think the people do. And that puts it all in context, doesn't it? It all sort of puts it all in context that we're all just passing through. You know what I mean? At some stage, they'll be up in space watching this, going, I wonder if he knew how primitive he looked. Bet you that's what happens. Bet you if they haven't blown us all up by then. Could have blown us all up the way things are going. Let's hope.
I know. There's no need for that. Hey, there was no need for that, like. There was no need for that.